Are you ready to stop the self-sabotage and create the life you desire? Well, in order for that to happen, you need to break free from the bad beliefs that are holding your success hostage. You need to optimize the stress by turning it into extra energy for success. And those hurtful habits? Well, we need to give that pain a purpose for progress. Welcome to Stop the Self-Sabotage and Create the Life You Desire podcast. Have you ever noticed that some of the most painful moments in life are not painful because of what happened? They hurt all the way to the core because you wanted something different. You wanted the diagnosis to be wrong. You wanted the relationship to work. You wanted the person to change. You wanted one more year, one more month, or maybe just one more chance. And the reality sitting in front of you has absolutely refused to cooperate. Today, I want to share about what happens when you want something to be true, but it's not. Sooner or later, every one of us finds ourselves standing in front of a reality we did not choose, and then we have a decision to make. But there's a hidden fight. A lot of people believe they're fighting circumstances, but it's reality itself, because reality says this happened. And then we say, yes, but it shouldn't have. Reality says the relationship is over. And we say, maybe if I just try harder. That's where I was 5 years ago. And then 4 years ago, there was the divorce. Reality says this season of life has changed. And we say, I want my old life back. That was me last September when I fell on a hiking path and jammed my shoulder into a boulder and literally blew the tendons apart. And I would love to have my old life back of being able to use my arm the way I used to. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen. And our mind becomes a courtroom because we gather evidence and we replay conversations and we search for explanations and we revisit actions. We try to prove that our reality should be different than what it is. And the problem is reality never enters the courtroom because it's not on trial. It simply is. And I've had some moments over the last few years where I wanted reality to be different. And one of the most profound was with my dog, Thor. If you have listened to this podcast for any length of time, you know how much that dog meant to me. He came to me about a year after I was divorced. A litter of puppies that I was going to get the pick of the litter, whatever I wanted, as a gift to me. And I felt like the overwhelming situational sadness I had been in because all of my life's transitions the previous year, lifting because of this new life. And he was 6 months old when the seizures started. And he was diagnosed with what's known as idiopathic epilepsy, which means seizures of unknown origin. And I did what so many of us would do. I researched, I asked questions, I looked for answers. I founded my faith on hope. I looked for one more thing I could do. Because love always wants one more option. One more possibility, one more solution. It was a little over a year ago. He had gone 2 months without any seizures. And I was beginning to have a glimmer of belief that maybe we had pushed this monster back. He was involved in private training lessons because when you have a 150-pound dog that believes everybody is or has the potential to be his best friend, well, you better know how to keep that power under control. We had just finished his lesson, number 9 out of 10. The entire training center had so fallen in love with this dog that the next training lesson was actually going to be a combination graduation and birthday party for him because he had just turned 2. And it was that night that he dropped in to a series of seizures. A dog's temperature is supposed to stay under 102. He was over 109 for hours. He heat stroked. And for 4 days in intensive care, I consulted 4 different vets that all gave me the same answer. But they all said the same thing. You need to give him a chance. But 4 days later, I reached a place where no amount of effort, research, love, or hope was going to change what was happening because he started seizing again. This was not a challenge of what else can be done. It was a reality problem. And I had to release him. And those are 2 very different things. Knowledge, if we know one more thing, we can finally get the bad to be good. Or reality. And this is where people can get stuck. Because grief and resistance look similar, but they're very different experiences. Grief says, I wish this were different. And resistance, I refuse to let this be what it is. Oh, and believe me, the hollering matches I had with God afterwards, oh, they showed how much resistance I was in, because resistance moves in circles. Grief moves with us as a partner on our path. Grief cries, resistance argues, denies. It refuses to accept. And it can harden us. Grief, one of the reasons why we can have such a challenge with grief is because we are so vulnerable, because it shows just how soft our heart is. And resistance can harden the heart. Not only can it delay healing, but what comes after the healing, the wholeness, the thriving, the life by design. Grief wants to walk that path with us. But resistance, we want to argue with reality. And when we argue with it, our energy gets trapped. We cannot use it to adapt. We cannot use it to create because we're spending all of our focus trying to make yesterday become something it never was, or trying to make today something it isn't. And maybe if you've ever felt exhausted without understanding why, this could be the reason, because you're carrying 2 lives, the one you're actually living and the one you wish you were living, but it's died. And that's where acceptance comes in. And, well, If you're like me, you want to resist acceptance. Acceptance does not mean approval. It does not mean you like it. It does not mean you agree with it. And it does not mean you stop caring. Acceptance simply means I'm willing to see clearly what is true. Nothing more, nothing less. It's not surrender, it's clarity. So whenever I find myself fighting reality, I've learned to ask a different question. Instead of why did this happen? I ask, given that this has happened, who do I want to become now? And that's a very different conversation, because one keeps me trapped in a past of pain. The other begins creating a future. It's a future of the unknown, though. I don't know if I'll be fulfilled by it. I don't know if I'll be able to achieve. But I'm willing to move forward, because acceptance is not the end. It's a doorway. It's a threshold. When you stop arguing with reality, energy becomes available again. Healing, wholeness, adapting, creating. You decide what comes next, not because your life turned out the way you wanted, but because you're finally working with who you've become through that reality instead of against it. There are things in my life right now that I desperately wish were different. I have a neighbor that last August discovered that her fence is on my property. I did not have a survey done on my piece of property because it was the rental home that my former husband owned, and I bought it from him in the divorce. So here it was, a few years later, and I decide I want to put in a fence, and I get a survey, and I discover that her fence is on my property, and I explain that. And 2 weeks later, I got hit with what's known as an adverse possession suit, which is basically squatters' rights. And, well, in my state, she's got right to that property. And I have been going through a court case for 10 months where I'm agreeing to give her the property. I'm not fighting it. But she is finding every reason to drag it out to where I have to pay additional court fees for continuances. Oh, I desperately wish that were different. I am very disappointed. But I'm saying, who do I want to be? A season has ended in a lot of places for me. And there were some seasons that never arrived. The question isn't what I want to be different. Just like you, we all have things we wish were different. The question is, because if you want better answers, ask better questions. What becomes possible when you stop arguing with reality and start building from what is true? So I've designed my backyard. I'm doing my landscaping. I am putting it together where it is my summer sanctuary. And I've accepted who I have as a neighbor. And every time I look at her fence that happens to be falling apart, I'm reminded I get to choose who I want to be. And she is not going to have the power to make that decision for me. Because acceptance isn't the end of the story. Acceptance is where the next chapter begins. Now, if our conversation today resonated with you, I want to let you know that I'm creating a free hypnosis experience that's going to assist you with this. I haven't done it yet, but our next episode that's going to pull all of this together in our series, because we had the last one from Monday, we've got today's, and then we have Fridays. On Fridays, I'll let you know how to claim that hypnosis experience for yourself and begin to get some relief from what you've been going through. So, in our next episode, we're going to explore, well, when do you push through the problems and when do you pause for progress? Because I want you to begin rebuilding your life around who you really are at your healthiest. So until we get together again, blessings on you and your journey, because the world is a better place when you're better in it.